you looking to expand your aesthetic practice and attract high-quality new patients? Discover the power of digital marketing in growing your practice with a personalized strategy session. Join Ryan Davies, Equa's marketing director, for an exclusive 90-minute meeting. Ryan and his team will invest hours prior to your session, crafting a customized marketing plan tailored specifically for your practice. This invaluable opportunity comes at no cost to you, with no commitments attached. Schedule your meeting with Ryan today by visiting www.businessofesthetics.org/MSM and take the first step towards transforming your practice with the potential of digital marketing.
Get ready for an extraordinary opportunity. You're invited to join our exclusive monthly webinar, brought to you by the Aesthetic Institute and the Business of Aesthetics community. Don't let this chance slip through your fingers. Secure your spot now for a game-changing experience. Explore the details on our homepage at www.businessofesthetics.org and get set to transform your strategies.
You are listening to another episode of the Business of Aesthetic podcast series brought to you by our gold sponsors, MRP and Equa Marketing. We also want to thank our silver sponsors Pronox and Lengia Law. If you would like to network and share your experience with our podcast guests and other aesthetic industry professionals, join our Facebook or LinkedIn communities by searching for Business of Aesthetics. Prepare to be inspired as we introduce Ryan Davies, an esteemed professional and seasoned digital marketing advisor at Equa.com. Renowned for his expertise in sales and marketing psychology, Ryan possesses a wealth of experience collaborating with companies and political campaigns. He profoundly understands the intricacies of consumer behavior and how it influences purchasing decisions. As a certified Sandler sales and challenger expert, he brings a unique perspective, employing innovative sales techniques that drive tangible results. Without further ado, let's dive in.
Hi everyone, I'm Ryan Davies, digital marketing advisor with Equa Marketing, here with a marketing tip for the Business of Aesthetics community. One of the questions I get asked a lot is, how do people find me and make their buying decisions in 2024? What is the aesthetic buyer's journey today? Well, fundamentally, it's changed in exponential ways over the past 2 decades, right? Like if we think back, and I'm going to date myself here back to, the turn of the century, if you will, it was still things like yellow pages where we would go and look up a specific provider or a specific service we were looking for. And we would typically go to the one with the biggest ad, and that's kind of where we would make our decision. Over time, it evolved into also things around, who's got different TV ads, radio ads, billboards, bus benches, flyers, direct mailers, whatever it was to be able to attract attention. But those lacked a lot of intent, right? People weren't looking for something maybe in the moment. So if it was someone who was looking for something in the moment, again, it was that yellow pages search or things like that. In today's world, we've transformed into the world of Google, and we all know this. This is where well over 90% of buying decisions begin, where people are able to ask very short questions, again, search by provider or title, or very long questions now where they're looking for very specific answers to questions that they have. And the way that you need to be able to take part in that buyer journey is you need to be able to do 2 things. Number one, are you found? That is the basis, right? So that really comes down to, can people even find you? Do they know you exist? Do they know what services that you provide? And then from there, once they found you, why would they choose you? So typically with this, there's kind of an art side and a science side, if you will. The science side is we need to appease Google with a web presence and a website and profiles and all of those types of things that answer those questions to be able to be found. Now, for 95% of people out there that are looking to be found, they aren't. 5% of all practices get 95% plus of the traffic. So let that sink in for a second. Out of you and 19 competitors, you've got 20 people in a group. Only one of you are getting traffic for free from Google, that you are appearing there, that they are able to find you and choose you. So when we take a look at that, it's really creating an unfair advantage to be able to be found. And to be able to do that, you need to have a technically sound website that covers a lot of different areas around NAP consistency, around your information, your SEO is laid out. How are your scores in things like Google Lighthouse or anything around that, where you're going to have a report card that's going to tell you, is your site fast? Is it secure? Is it set up for success? Are you following best practices? Is it fully accessible? all of those types of things. There's many more factors that are going to go into this, but you need to know, how are you doing in those factors, and are you performing there so that Google can even rank you at the top so that people can find you. Then from there, once they've found you, we transition to the why would they choose you. So now they found you because they know that you do what they're looking for. They've asked that question, you've come to the top. Now the question is, do I trust you and do I like you? So are you showcasing, your success on there? Are you set up for success from that standpoint? Are you an expert? Are you posting the before and after photos from that sort of a thing for each of the services that you do? Really focus on having multiple photos, and especially that after photo. That's the money shot, right? That's what people want to see is, are you good at what you do? What can I expect in terms of as a realistic result when I come here? Make sure they're original photos, right? You've got original content, all of that. Those things build trust and likability, and showcase yourself. Have a personality on there. Use all forms of media. You're not just going to have a bunch of text and have this glorified Wikipedia page. You've got to have it so that you've got video, you've got all of the content, the way that people consume content now. So if you do all of those things together, you are going to be able to get found and then get chosen by people. Now, the final piece of that element is going to be, now that you've found, now that you've been chosen and people are calling you, how are you doing on that? How are you doing with the phone, right? Do you have the right person answering the phone? Are they answering questions, or are they asking for appointments, right? These are the big factors that you want to do. And are you tracking those results? Are you recording those calls and understanding and studying those so that you can improve on those results over time, right? What it's going to come down to is, we are a very lazy, very entitled, very demanding instant gratification society now. So you need to be able to transition people from, I don't even know you, and spoon feed them the information to, now I know you, now I like you, now I trust you, and you do what I'm looking for. And then when I've reached out for contact, you made it easy for me to get that consultation. You answered my leftover questions. You broke down the barriers to entry. And if you can do each of those elements, you are set up for success moving forward. So that's really what it comes down to, is making sure that you have that. That is the journey these days. But to get there, you really need to know where you are now and put that plan in place. At Business of Aesthetics, we're very happy to offer that to you by going to businessaesthetics.org/MSM and book a time to go through and take this and make it granular for you. What is it that we are talking about here, and how are you scoring in those key categories, as I mentioned, from the science, the technical side of things? How is it set up for success from that ethical influence and that conversion rate side? Are you set up for success, and are you tracking all the right metrics? What are the metrics you should be tracking? So again, businessaesthetics.org/MSM to find out where you are now and put yourself in place for success moving forward. Welcome to another captivating installment of the Business of Aesthetics podcast. I'm Ryan Davies, your co-host at the heart of the Business of Aesthetics community and podcast show. Before we immerse ourselves in the riches of today's episode, I want to express my profound gratitude to all of you, our incredible listeners from across the United States and all corners of the globe. Your willingness to embrace and share this podcast and your invaluable insights and experiences have collectively transformed our community into a thriving epicenter of wisdom and innovation. Your unwavering dedication is the cornerstone of our success, and we can't thank you enough. I am so excited today to dive into our main topic, how to use Moxie Mindset to thrive in a competitive market. And I have just the most amazing guest joining us here today, Dr. Dina Strachan. Dr. Dina, as you're more commonly known, as everybody knows you, you are essentially a household name in the industry. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's my pleasure.
Excellent. You know what? I'm going to give a little bit of an introduction for those who are unaware or want to become much more initiated and intimate with you here, Dr. Dina. She is a globally recognized authority in skin and hair loss, boasting an absolute incredible wealth of education and experience. When we talk about degrees from prestigious institutions, if I were to say, name your top three that come to mind, like Family Feud style, I think we'd all probably go to the same ones. She has these great degrees from institutions such as Harvard, Yale, and Columbia, with specialized training beyond that from UCSF in dermatology. And Dr. Dina has spent nearly 2 decades in providing clinical treatment to tens of thousands of patients worldwide. As the owner of Aglow Dermatology in New York City, she oversees a clinic that caters to up to 1,000 patients monthly, including some very high-profile celebrities. Her specialties lie in dark skin diagnostics and management, offering medical-grade chemical peels, on and on and on. She's actually been featured in the Netflix docuseries, The Black Beauty Effect. So episodes, I believe 2 and 3, you were saying is where
Yes.
it's at. So for our listeners, when you're done here, you know where to go next to continue on your journey with Dr. Dina. And recently she had fought and won an anti-diversity resolution with the American Academy of Dermatology, making sure that the standards stay as high as they possibly can, and as we all come to expect from wonderful providers like Dr. Dina. That I don't think anybody wants to hear from me, though. I think we all want to hear from you here, and I'd love for you to share with us your journey in establishing Aglow Dermatology in New York City, as competitive as it comes, and what inspired you to kind of enter this competitive market. As I know, this is kind of something you almost stumbled into in private practice, and it ended up being something truly amazing and revolutionary, not just for you, but your peers and your patients.
Well, wow. Thank you for that, Ryan. I would say that what a lot of people are surprised about is that I never wanted to be in private practice. A lot of people go into dermatology and that's their dream, to open up a private practice or an aesthetic practice. I was actually attracted to dermatology because of my interest in AIDS back in the 90s. And, at that time, they didn't have good medicines for the patients. And since your skin is an immune organ, 90% of the patients would have skin problems. So that's kind of how I stumbled into dermatology. And that's one of the reasons I went to San Francisco to train. In the middle of my residency, a lot of things changed in medicine. And they got much better medications for the patients. So a lot of the conditions that I was treating literally started to melt away once people got on highly aggressive antiretroviral therapy. And so, I was doing some of that and doing some inpatient dermatology as an academic. My first job was in Los Angeles at a community hospital, and I taught residents. But I wanted to come back to New York because that's where I was from, and I missed the energy, the vibe, the vibrancy of New York City. So I came back, but I just was not finding academia to be the type of environment that I had imagined. And it was true. Things were changing. It was becoming much more corporate, much more transactional, much more like private practice. So I felt like, why not go into private practice if that's what I'm going to be doing?
Right. Amazing. I think that's going to give our great background here, but we want to talk about, again, our topic, using the Moxie mindset to thrive in a competitive marketplace. New York City, that is a crowded area with a crowded industry in a very competitive marketplace. Tell us a little bit about what Moxie mindset means to you and how that's really helped you sort of develop this brand. Again, really you've become a, very recognizable figure, both for your peers, for your patients, how you've been able to use that to kind of push through and really overcome some challenges in this market.
So what Moxie mindset is, it's a can-do mindset. It's very Generation X. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to MacGyver it. I'm going to get it done. And so New York City is, I think, the most competitive dermatology market in the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think the highest concentration of dermatologists are in New York. And so, particularly as someone who doesn't have a business background, I didn't have a private practice background. And when I decided to go out there, I kind of just found myself stumbling out there. I just had to take on the attitude. It's like, well, I don't know everything. I know a lot. I don't know everything, but I'm going to figure this out and get it done. And I'm going to look at reality.
Right. That's incredible. I think that really gives you that, like you said, it's that I'm going to make it as I go. We've all heard the terms, fake it till you make it, or whatever it is. There's lots of different ways to say, I'm going to take the tools at my disposal. I'm going to take what I know I'm good at, what I'm not, I'm going to push through. And I think, in instance of somebody who's starting a new practice, which we've got a lot of our listeners and a lot of the community who are they're in that early growth stage there, or they're looking to start, they really struggle with that self-doubt. They struggle with the fear of failure. They struggle with the, not the what if I'm going to be successful and what does that look like, but what if I don't make it? What does that look like? Right. So talk to us a little bit about how you were able to cultivate that, push through those challenges, and turn self-doubt into more of a motivator than a detractor for you to be able to grow your practice.
Well, one, I had to get humble. So, there were things that I knew. I knew the medicine, well trained, well educated with that. I didn't know all the business side of it. So I had to actually continue to study. It wasn't one of these things like, well, I know everything now. Why should I have to learn that? And I know sometimes some of my, doctor colleagues, feel like, well, I shouldn't have to do that. Well, if you're going to have your own practice, you are. So I had to learn about accounting, bookkeeping. I had to learn. I didn't never wanted to be anyone's boss. That was never a dream of mine. But if you own the practice and you're running it and you're going to be someone's boss, then you have to. There's responsibilities with that, and it's not just power like some people think. So I had to learn about marketing. That's something I felt a little snobby about as a doctor. Like, oh, why should I have to market? Because you do, because it doesn't matter if you are really well trained, if no one knows about you, knows you're there, knows what you have to offer.
That's right.
So for someone starting out, I think it's important not to overwhelm yourself with, I think you should start small if you don't have a lot of resources. You can sublease space. Now there are more tools at people's disposal. Some people are very good with the social media, and that can be a good way to get clients, depending on how you use it. If you learn how to, show people your business, don't be a consumer of social media, be a user of social media,
Right.
And so there are, different ways making relationships with people. When I would go out, I'd always bring my cards. Some people say business cards are dead. They are absolutely not. And I would actually go to offices like a drug rep. So I paid attention to what other people did to generate business.
That's incredible. I love that. And, I spend a lot of time talking with people about, business growth plans and marketing strategies and things like that as well. And I always use that same thing with marketing, right? It's one of those things that I hate to say it this way because it's my entire world, but it's a necessary evil. Just like people don't like doing the accounting and people don't like doing it. You gotta dedicate to that. And second of all, you could be the world's greatest artist. And if I ask you where your paintings are and you say they're hanging in my basement, I don't know that. I can't find you. I can't appreciate it. So you got to be able to do that and overcome some of these things and put yourself out there and do the necessary things to be successful. So I love all of the call outs there and all of the ways that you said, just learn from others and observe and network and grow. Like, I mean, there's a lot of examples that you gave there. Can you share with our audience, maybe if you've got a specific example, a situation, something that comes to mind where that Moxie mindset for you was very crucial in navigating, maybe was there a really uncertain time you had where you're like, okay, time to put it into action, time to walk the walk that I've been talking about and the talk track in my head. Anything that comes to mind for you that you could share?
Absolutely. I started out more of a medical dermatologist. I did some cosmetic things, but, I had a little, ego thing around the cosmetic. Sometimes I felt like, oh, people are chasing money and I don't like that mindset. And it's a little snooty if I'm honest about it. And, I started to realize too, that I was uncomfortable discussing money with people. And that was a me problem. It wasn't, and there's nothing wrong with a transaction for money. I'm providing a service, I get paid. With insurance, somebody else was handling that, but I wasn't comfortable with that. And that was an area I had to grow in. So because I was uncomfortable with that, I figured out a way one day to actually get the conversation started without me having to bring it up, knowing that I was uncomfortable. So there was a service that I provided to people, and I just did a little PowerPoint slide and I put it in a question. Do you have this problem? Ask Dr. Strachan if this service would be, right for you. PowerPoint. And I made an extra $800 that afternoon after I put that PowerPoint up because the patients initiated it. So I felt different. I didn't feel like I was chasing, and I knew they were interested.
That's amazing. I love that. And just again, there's that confirmation that what you're doing is right. You're able to kind of validate from that perspective as well. I love it. Um, Now, in your opinion, what would you say are the key attributes of Moxie Mindset, and how individuals can help maybe develop the qualities that they're short on, or they could train themselves, or to work on them? I think part of it is, again, identifying, like, what does that mean? Where am I strong, and where am I short, and how can I kind of sharpen those skills that I'm not as strong at yet?
I think there's a kind of confidence, and it's not this confidence of false bravado. Confidence is really earned, but that you're going to actually really go deep and explore and figure out how to get something done.
Right.
So it's actually one, believing it's possible, and being open to doing things differently than you thought. Like one of the courses that I would go to when I was learning more marketing, I would go to courses for people who had businesses that sounded really less traditional. Like, like if I read about somebody who was marketing and making money with a business like how to find your angels or how to find your fairies, something that sounded very odd, I would want to learn the skills that person had, because I have something that is more straightforward to people. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so if that person is making more money than I'm making with this, what I think is a strange business or an unusual business, then they probably have some techniques, and I would go vet them and find out what they were, and see if they were appropriate for me without the ego of I went to this school.
You were very even when I brought up the, hey, let's bring up the accolades, you were quite quiet through the whole thing, just being like, okay, yeah, I did it all, okay, I get it, right? But that's exactly, I think we could see that in action, of the fact that it's, you can speak confidently, and you've got experience, and that's kind of that triumph over top of all of that, and you seem quite proud of the fact of, again, like you said, you've worked at this in a different mindset. Yes, you have all of the credentials and the authority behind it, but it's that the experience that you bring forward that really kind of is what speaks volumes, and your ability to go at it, even when you maybe don't have the full confidence, the full experience there, but to learn from it. So how do you balance that? I mean, this is a loaded question, but how do you balance confidence and humility in your professional journey, like especially in this environment? Because that is, I think, the masterful line to be able to walk, right? Is, I'm confident what I can do, but I'm willing to accept, that humility. I'd love to hear your take on that.
I think that just comes down to self-awareness. And, again, like I said, confidence is earned. So, when I got a new laser, I've used lasers before, but I haven't used this one. So I'm going to take notes and pay attention and ask them how to turn it on, because every device is different. And, what's this and what's that? I'm not going to come at it. I don't want someone to say, "Oh, you're a doctor. You've been doing this for years." Start from the beginning, just like everyone else. I mean, this happens to me as a patient, because sometimes I'm in situations and the person taking care of me knows I'm a doctor, and they start, "Oh, well, I'm like, no. I'm not a gynecologist. I'm not an internist. Start, tell me the whole thing. Don't assume I know how to fill in the gaps."
That's amazing. I think, if we could get a little granular now on this, maybe some advice that you have. So whether it's entrepreneurs, people who are seasoned pros in this, people who are, maybe even looking at retirement, like they've been doing it for a long time, but they're really looking to establish themselves, particularly in a competitive market. And I'm going to be honest with you, with the time I spend in this area, I think almost everywhere is a competitive market there, especially, whether it's cosmetic dermatology, medical dermatology, the aesthetic side, even into plastics. I always use that comparison of, I remember years ago, you'd go to the mall and, all of a sudden you could see nail salons popping up, which was never before the case. And then people were giving massages in the middle of malls, and people were doing eyebrow threading in the middle of malls. And now people are getting to that point where, like, injectables are becoming this commoditized thing and beyond, right? So with kind of all of that in mind, advice that you would give to say, like, look, in a competitive market, based on your experience cultivating the Moxie mindset, what advice would you give to people to kind of establish and grow themselves and separate themselves, differentiate themselves in those markets?
Well, one, it starts with the self-awareness. What
Yeah.
risk can you stand? Do you have a fantasy that, oh, just because I buy this device or just because I start doing injectables, I just will make money automatically? You don't necessarily make money automatically. You make money if you do. So you could make a lot of money doing medical dermatology on insurance if you set up your business a certain way. So I think it really comes down to the fundamentals and understanding how you're going to make money, with not with this assumption that it's just insta money. I think that's
I,
really, really big.
Yeah, I think that's really huge. And again, I think maybe I'll even ask you about this. This is a little bit off topic on this, but I think it feeds into it as well. Is like you said, parking the ego and doing things like that. You want to make sure that you're not trying to solve the whole world's problems. You're not trying to solve everybody's problems. And I think a lot of people get caught up in that, especially when they hear from their patients that they're so passionate about helping and things like that with, why don't you do this treatment? Why don't you have this laser? Or I heard about this. Advice around that, like, do you see a lot of that happening and people going, yep, like you said, I'm going to go get that now and this is it, and then all of a sudden, like you said, it's this device that's collecting dust? Or even the person that recommended and wanted was like, well, I didn't mean for me, I was just, like, now all of a sudden it's not working for them, right? So talk to us a little bit about that and share some some thoughts on that for our audience.
Well, I think you should know your patients. Like, I'm assuming that, you might already have a business and you already have some clients.
Mm-hmm.
So what is it that they want? When I started, I did a lot of internet things. I did a lot of internet marketing, and my patients were so young, and I would get Botox and it would go bad. And I'm like, how is everyone using this Botox? Nobody wants this, because my patients were 23, but they had other aesthetic problems.
Yep.
Just not ones that you'd necessarily treat with Botox. And, younger people kind of got interested in Botox a little bit later. So one, make it patient focused. You'd be surprised. You don't try to, sell water when it's raining. You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Look for, maybe sell umbrellas instead. So, so what are the problems? Maybe they want hair removal if they're younger. Or, if it's somebody who is older, not everyone ages the same way. Some of your patients have, some people don't like injectables. They think it's unnatural, but they like laser. They like peels. Are you addressing hair loss? How much do you know about hair loss? Are you going to go out and buy an expensive device because you think, oh, I'm going to make so much money doing hair loss? But how easy is it going to be to convert somebody to that? It's easier when you have options for people. Everyone isn't going to walk in and do your most expensive procedure.
Be great if they did.
Yeah, but that's not.
There's the dream, right? But yeah, exactly. I don't think that's always going to be the case for you in that sense, right? So you got to understand that balance and that blend and things along those lines. Crystal ball, we're gonna talk a little bit into the future here, but let's talk a little bit about your aspirations, and again, applying that, leveraging the Moxie mindset that you have. How is that impacting your future plans for a glow dermatology and other personal and professional things that you're working on? Is it something you're continuing to put into play and grow, or do you have a specific strategy you're using?
Well, I am trying to kind of, before the pandemic, my practice was a certain way. And of course, the unprecedented events of 2020 changed things, and a lot has changed about the workforce. So, we're dealing with a workforce that has a different attitude towards work, and this is a service business. And, people have to be trained. I have very high standards, so I'm not going to just let somebody come in and do things to my patients, you know what I mean? Because they have a certain license, and, they are allowed, but they don't really know how to do it. So that's been a little bit more of a challenge now. So I've had to adjust some of my expectations. I've had to change how I bring people in. We're starting a little further back because people need more coaching, before they get to that level.
Tell me a little bit about that too. I'm just gonna keep drilling down here, because I think this is a great conversation of, like you mentioned, the change in mindset, the change in workforce, the ability to pivot and using that mindset to drive success in that sense as well. Because that's got to be something that obviously you went through, continue to go through. Again, even just like you said, the workforce is changing, inflation being what it is, right? Like demographics are changing. People who, maybe had disposable income before have less of it now, and all of that sort of side of things. So talk to me about how you can apply that mindset as well to help drive, various, agility in what you're doing.
So, one of the things I'm trying to do when I started out initially, I didn't want to leverage money because I wanted people to pay for me, not for them
Yep.
to be paying for some lease or something else. But then, after a while, you can't scale just yourself. You have to be able to scale other people. So I want delegatable things, but that involves more of an investment. But then the investment sometimes is your competitive edge.
Yeah.
Anyone could do it, but anyone who has the money to get the device can delegate it. So I'm mixing that. I'm leveraging things a little bit differently than I did before because I want to be able to not have everything rest on my shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And expand, but do it in a respectful way to my patients.
I like that. That's amazing. I think that, that's just a fantastic way of looking at it. And again, you gotta kind of adapt with the times. And sometimes we have trends and things that's big in the aesthetics and, dermatology industry is following the trends and seeing what's next. And then sometimes you have COVID where there's no trend for this. Nobody could be prepared for what was coming there and how that was going to impact, right? And what that was going to do for economies. And no one knows what war's breaking out next or what bill's going to pass or whatever it is. So you got to try and do what you can to make things right from that perspective and be ready for it. With all of that, I want to be able to close off here with, some parting thoughts from you about, again, the Moxie mindset. If you have advice for people, I'm sure one of your things is the don't give up idea, right? Like you can do it. You got to kind of push through it, but give us some lasting thoughts when people are looking at you going, Dr. Dina, how are you doing it? Like, I'm exhausted. I don't know how you do it. You're sitting here on a podcast, all smiles, having a great time. How are you able to do everything that you do and be so successful at it?
I think self-care is very important. And I don't mean self-care as, get a massage and, though I like crystals and I like massages, those things are good. But, give yourself some of your day every single day. I start out the morning. I listen to Robert Greene's Daily Laws. I don't know if you're familiar with him as a
I'm
writer.
not, but I'm like looking over at my paper here going, I'm going to write that down. If Dr. Dina says it, I got to do, I like it. Yeah.
It's 48 Laws of Power. He wrote The Art of Seduction. He wrote An Art of War, The Laws of Human Nature. And he's just, throughout his life and writings thought very deeply. And it's when you understand people and you understand yourself and how you're reacting. I mean, being a business owner is like the most powerful therapy because all of these things come out about your feelings about money, your energy dealing with other people. You're always dealing with other people.
Yeah.
And then they're reacting to you a certain way. Like a business coach I had, he taught me that when you're a boss, you're actually in a parental dynamic with your employees and that people respond to you like they respond to your parents. And it was so true because some people, had authority issues. Other people like whatever you say. Some people are afraid to make a move without asking. Other people want to defy you. And it is even if you don't, and I didn't want to be a boss. So that was a burden. I'm the youngest. Why don't people know what to do? That's not my responsibility. So I had to grow and deal with that. So once you are, just accept that, you know what I mean? That is, it actually makes it easier. And then your energy doesn't get drained. In fact, you can predict it. You can anticipate things. I think you have to do self-work. And that might just be meditating, reading, but learn about people.
I mean, it all goes back to your self-awareness foundation, right? And that is it. If you spend so much time doing everything else about everything else, but you don't have the self-awareness. You're not grounded. I love the fact that you said, make some time for yourself in your day. It's your day. That's literally how you said it. It's your day. You own that day. Yet so many of us don't make time for ourselves during our day. We're worried about everything else that goes on. And then, we look back and we go, what just happened? Why am I actually just had the conversation earlier with, why am I tired? And why am I this? And it's like, well, I drink 3 cups of coffee and not enough water. I'm not spending time doing the things I want to do. I'm not exercising anymore. I'm not reading. Okay. Gee, I wonder what's going on. I'm not spending time in my day for me anymore, right? So
Yeah.
I love it. Like you said, self-awareness, being able to do that, it goes miles in being able to, again, give you the confidence that you're going to achieve everything that you want to achieve. And when you hit those obstacles, they're just an obstacle. They're not a wall. It's not insurmountable. It's just something you got to work through. And the feeling on the other side of defeating an obstacle, second to none, right? So
Exactly.
it's amazing. So with that, I think, you know what, Dr. Dina, I want to sign off. But before I do, I want to, again, for our audience, we talked about the Netflix special. We talked about, other places. But Dr. Dina, where can our audience learn more about you, get connected with you? Because, your personality, it's infectious in the best possible way. And everybody, I want to keep feeding off your energy. I know our audience does as well. How can we get a little bit more of Dr. Dina in our lives?
That's great. Instagram, I have Dr. Dina MD, DRDINA MD is like my brand account for me. And then I have a Glow Derm NYC, AGLOWDERM NYC. And on LinkedIn, I'm kind of a nerd, so LinkedIn is is my favorite social media. And it's Dr. Dina MD there as well. And then glowdermatology.com is my website.
There we go. And so much that you shared with us here today. I know that I've been smiling ear to ear through the whole recording. Our listeners are probably doing the same thing, whether they're sitting at home watching, sitting at home listening, driving in their car. It's inspirational to hear, there are obstacles, but what you're doing can be so rewarding and so self-fulfilling, and you're touching so many people's lives by being so successful in it. And again, fighting the good fight that you do, as we mentioned, off the kickoff there with all the great things you do, Dr. Dina. And on top of it all, you spent time with us today here sharing with me and our audience, and I can't thank you enough for that. So Dr. Dina Strachan, thank you so much for joining us here today and talking about your journey. Truly appreciate it. And I'm just going to do the assumptive thing and say, I can't wait until we do this again together, because it was fantastic. Thank you.
Well, I hope to be back. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I also want to thank our listeners. We appreciate each and every one of you, and we can't do what we do without you. So if you like our podcast, if you want us to bring more incredible guests like Dr. Dina to you, kindly share this with your friends and on social media. Don't forget to write us a review on iTunes, Google Play, or wherever you're listening. Your thoughts, it'll help other doctors and practice owners find us and appreciate what we do. So until we meet again, this is Ryan Davies, and I wish you all an amazing week ahead. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Business of Aesthetic podcast series, brought to you by our gold sponsors, MRP and Equa Marketing, and silver sponsors, Lengea Law and ProNox. Would you like to join our growing group of aesthetic industry experts and get featured on the Business of Aesthetics podcast? Or do you know someone who would love to share their strategies for growth in the aesthetic business, providing quality patient care or their clinical expertise? Head over to www.businessofesthetics.org podcast show and apply to be featured as a guest on the show. Remember to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen. If you would like to engage with today's speakers or any of our past speakers, join our Facebook group or LinkedIn group by searching for Business of Aesthetics. Thank you and have a great day.